Oh boy, here we are. This is the RadJunk podcast. It is Thursday, October 12th. It is currently 11:05 p.m. here in Florida, on the west side of Florida. I'm Joe Alonzo. I'm your host for the RadJunk podcast. I own RadJunk, Rad Bar, and Really Rad Weekend, a retro video game store, an arcade bar, and a retro video game convention vacation thing for charity in Northwest Florida. How's everybody doing? This is our weekly show where I talk about everything that's going on in the world of rad and the state of the retro video game market and everything else going on in my life because it's a lot of crap and I like to ramble on. And apparently, a couple people like to listen. So here we are. I was having an internal debate earlier because I purchased a bag of peanut butter M&Ms, which the last time I did, I enjoyed them. However, I've come to realize I actually hate them because they're not like Reese's Pieces. The chocolate peanut butter ratio is off. It's too much chocolate. It's an M&M with a little bit of peanut butter. I want Reese's Pieces. I want the thin shell with just peanut butter inside. And yeah, what's your favorite candy? I wouldn't say Reese's Pieces is my favorite, but I'll tell you what, it sure kicks the crap out of peanut butter M&Ms. Stupid. Um, Tomorrow's my birthday, the 13th, Friday the 13th. I will be old, 37 years old to be exact. We're going to celebrate by hosting an impromptu like emo night at the bar. Really, what I want to do is I just want to drink whole beers. I want to eat wings from Buffalo's Reef, our resident or our local best buffalo wing place, and I want to play some pinball, specifically with my friends though, which my employees are my friends. So really, it's everybody I see on a weekly basis. Nothing too crazy. I think we're gonna take my son to the trampoline park in the morning. That's our typical like Friday routine. So that way he has a good time, and then my mom's gonna watch him, and we're gonna go do stuff. Nothing too crazy this year. We canceled our Las Vegas vacation. So last year we were gonna start the tradition of going to Vegas every year. We went for the When We Were Young music festival. So I bought tickets for that again on the basis of we just wanted to take a Vegas trip. However, the way that the flights lined up and everything, it was going to be way too expensive for this time of year because we've got Really Rad Weekend going on, which we'll touch on later, and a whole bunch of other things. And it's our off season. Sam and I can only really take one vacation a year, and it's only for a weekend because we can't be away for that long. I know we're not at the shop and the bar every day, but we do a lot of things behind the scenes, so it's tough. However, next week we have. I basically looked at our local airports, and I was like, "What are the cheapest flights to the coolest places?" Just random. I think I used Google Flights, and I was just like, "Flights going anywhere." And Nashville was on the list of a potential. We've been there a bunch of times. Most recent time I believe was for my friend's wedding, and we got to check out a lot of cool spots. But I've been to Nashville a lot. However, they opened Game Terminal there, which is a huge arcade and pinball place. So it was under consideration. Flights were really, really cheap. Like I think you can get a ticket for like $190 or something like that. However, Miami was in the running as well, but I didn't really want to go there when I'm trying to like save money. Because when we travel, we mainly just we eat. We go to restaurants that we can't eat at normally. So I was looking, and then somebody brought up the fact on Blue Sky. It was Nick on the Blue Ski that the Pinball Expo was happening in Chicago the exact weekend we had our vacation lined up. So, checked flights, and guess what? They were dirt cheap. We booked a hotel for the entire time at a pretty nice hotel. and our flights for less than what it would have cost for flights to Vegas. So that's super exciting. We're going to check out the Pinball Expo on Saturday. We fly in Friday. Probably get some food, explore a little bit depending on what time our plane lands. And then Saturday, we're going to go to the Pinball Expo, which is going to be really cool. There's a lot of news that's been happening this week. Talks of Labyrinth Pinball, Special Edition, Aliens Pinball. There's something else I saw today that I was like, oh, that's going to be cool because it's unveiling. There's another game. It was like Ninja, Laser Ninja. I know that sounds stupid, but I swear that's what the name was. It's going to be unveiled at the Pinball Expo. So that'd be exciting. And I really want to get my hands on Venom. I want to play Venom to see what it's like. I know it's gotten some mixed reviews thus far, but I think it could be cool. So we're going to check that out. And then we're going to hit Galloping Ghost. And for those that don't know, Galloping Ghost is an arcade in Chicago or the Chicago area. It's the largest in North America, I believe, or has the highest game count. I don't know. Sometimes when people talk about largest, they talk about area-wise. Others talk about gameless. However, they bring out a new game every Monday. And I want to say that their game count is currently like 951 machines or 952 machines. And they've got a little bit of everything, as well as some really rare stuff. They have a Ninja Baseball Batman, like an actual cabinet, and things like that. So that'll be cool. I'm really excited to eat food there. Chicago is a great food city. Outside of the Chicago staples like the deep dish pizza, the Italian beef, and the hot dogs, there's actually a lot of crazy restaurants there. There's a Filipino restaurant that has a Michelin star, which is wild to me. We might check that out. It looks really good and really cool. During the day, they're like a normal bakery and like lunch spot. And then on the weekends at night, they have like a high-end tasting menu that looks pretty good. So that might be like something special we do. But yeah, we're going to go to Chicago. And then after that, I'm not going to be able to make it to Mystery Meat like I thought I was. Some of the guys that were going to go with me might still go down. My friend Ravi, who owns V2 Labs and Sorcery, puts on a show called Mystery Meat. This is Mystery Meat 6, technically. There was a few-year hiatus because of COVID and whatnot, and things just not coming together. But these shows are huge, and if you're in the Orlando area or even Florida and you're into the car stuff, this is going to be awesome because there's like drag racing, there's a drift thing, there's multiple car shows happening within this one show. And he was gracious enough to give us a booth there to sling some stuff. However, the merch that I was going to take isn't ready in time. Plus, with us flying to Chicago and coming back and then really rad weekend and everything else, it's going to be tough. And it was also, so on October 28th, we have our Halloween event at the bar that we call Radoween. I know that's stupid and kind of a cop-out for coming up with a better marketing thing, but it's a good time every year, and it's one of our crazier events. So I would have had to do our Halloween event and then leave at 2 a.m. to get down to Orlando for this other thing. So I'm like, man, this is gonna suck like really bad. However, like I said, some of the guys I was gonna go with, they might still go down and take some merch and things to pass out. My friend Kyle and Fluck and Casey and maybe Kenny. They've got some cool cars, and they'll have a good time. But if you're in the Orlando area, go check out Mystery Meat. And also come to our Halloween event. We've got like a $200 costume contest and some other, like, we've got drink specials and all that. But Halloween and March are two of our biggest events because who doesn't like an excuse to dress up? Also, if you're around on Friday, come by the bar, or I guess tonight, by the time you guys hear this, unless you're listening live on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/RadJunk. Come by the bar. It's my birthday event. We're going to listen to a bunch of old hardcore music and emo music and play pinball. Somebody challenged me at Foo Fighters. Let's go. 1v1. I'm really loving that game. But to go right into it, what have we done for the past week? So last Saturday, which I guess technically would have been after a lot of people listened to this podcast or after this was recorded, I went up to Crestview with my friend Derry to pick up some arcade games. Someone had contacted us. I don't believe I've talked about this, so I'm just going to talk about it anyway. Someone contacted us via social media about some arcade games they wanted to sell. Super nice dude. Um, he's got he had some games and he had a very reasonable price. So I was like, screw it, I'll go get them. It's a little bit older than what I typically go for. Definitely some like early to mid '80s stuff that's you don't see very often anymore. So went up there. I met Derry up there, um, and the nicest guy in the world. John, I believe is his name. If I am saying that wrong, I'm sorry. My brain is fried. I've been working on machines all day. But we get to his house. Derry had beaten me there. And I hear Derry's voice in the back. The guy with the cabinets had told us that he was going to be in his shed in the back, his shed. So I get there. They come around the corner. And Derry's like, "You're gonna want to see what's back there." So we load up the machines, and I noticed that he had some retro computer stuff, some like 8-bit era computing stuff in his garage. And I was like, "Oh, are you into that stuff?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm not going to say I'm a Commodore guy. However, when it comes to like the 8-bit computer era and vintage computers, Commodore is what I go after typically. I had a really nice setup that I traded away, and I have bits and pieces from another setup that I just haven't had time to set up or put together because I don't have space. That stuff takes up a lot of room. Anyway, I saw a Commodore, I want to say it was a 1908 monitor, which is the model number of the monitor, complete in the box. I was like, dude, that's super cool. He's like, oh, you want it? He just gave it to me along with an SD card adapter to replace like a floppy drive or a tape drive. So for those that don't know, Commodore, a lot of the old 8-bit computer stuff used cassette tapes, like audio cassettes to store data, and you could play them back and put your programs back on your computer that way. That's how you would record things if you didn't have a floppy drive. So he gives me that stuff. We load up the cabs. He gave me a bunch of manuals. There was one for a Fathom pinball machine in there, which is super cool. I'm like really excited about that one. The cabinets were Juno first, which coincidentally I'd seen the night before in a video from John's Arcade about Galloping Ghost. There was a Gottlieb, or no, I'm sorry, a Rockola Fantasy. There was an empty Taito cab. There was an empty Phoenix cab. There was an Arch Rivals basketball. And I believe something else, and I can't remember. We got 6 cabs in total. Yeah, 6. And so he's like, "Hey, you want to check out the back?" And I was like, "Yeah." So normally when that happens, people are showing me their like home arcade. But he's like, "We need to go upstairs first." So we go to his shed, we go upstairs. He opens the door. It is literally every Apple computer from like essentially the Apple 1 forward. It may have been from like the Apple 2 forward. And every variation, every Mac, every single thing. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. He's got them all set up, much like a lot of people have their video game collection set up. He had a bunch of the multicolored iMacs set up and networked together so you could play Marathon on them. And it was wild. And everywhere you looked, there was something else. Like it looked like little pieces of Apple memorabilia and things that, there was so much. And to be honest, I was more impressed with that than any video game I saw that day. And it was super, super cool. And so then we head downstairs, and he had a personal arcade. I think he had probably 20 machines in there, maybe 25. A lot of the early 80s to mid 80s stuff. And right dead in the center was an environmental Discs of Tron, an environmental Star Wars, just sitting there. And it was cool. The Discs of Tron looked amazing. And everything played, everything was in good shape. It was like the perfect. It was very obviously like his favorite games from that era, and everything was curated very nicely and all in great shape. Like I said, he was working on some of his pinball. He was working on a Space Invaders pinball, which is a wide body one. He had a Doctor Who pinball, which was sick. So very cool collection. And once again, John, I believe, thank you so much for the hookup. So you have a crazy collection, especially your Apple computers. But we put everything on the trailer. We went back to Fort Walton. We had to rearrange the warehouse a little bit, and it was amazing. And so we got all that unloaded, and then straight to trade night. Trade night was pretty good. Lots of good stuff. Dylan came out with a lot of his stuff. He's got a lot of high end pieces like Rule of Rose and Jack Bros and things like that. So we worked a deal on a lot of his handheld things. I also picked up a Virtual Boy from him with some games. And what else did I get? I got a Wonder Swan game from him, a golf game that I didn't have. I also got a copy of Summer Assault on the TurboGrafx 16 that was complete, which is cool because that's one of the games that was cardboard and tray, not cardboard and like the case, like the CD style case. I bought a bunch of other stuff too, and everybody had a good time. We went to the bar, typical stuff. And Scream Cup in the Twitch chat, it's you just got to open a store, man. It's the way to do it. So, trade night was a success. We got a lot of good stuff. Earlier in the day, though, Sam and the girls bought a collection of a lot of like CIB N64 games, including like Conkers and there was Mario Kart in there. I can't remember a lot of the titles off the top of my head, but it was like really good stuff. And then the Game Boy collection was even better, and it was all CIB. So that was cool to see. It's always cool to see N64 and Game Boy cardboard because it's a little bit thinner than a lot of it, and it deteriorates and gets beat up really badly. So that was a great purchase. There were some consoles in there too. There was also a Silent Hill 2 in there, and then there was something else that was... Oh, there was a Lunar on Sega CD that was just in there, which was cool. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to touch on. So my friend Derry that helped me move the arcade cabinets, he had a box of stuff that he sold us too, and in it, there were these PlayStation 1s, the original PlayStation 1s, like the rectangular one, not the smaller one, that had custom shells on them that were translucent. And the funny thing about those, they were sold through a local card shop called TBS back in the day when they would sell some imports. I remember getting like a copy of Dragon Ball Z UB22 and a mod chip there or something, or one of my friends did, or somebody had it and I ended up with it. But the cool part about that is after we first opened, when TBS was selling all this, there was a website in existence called LeakSang, liksang.com. And I did order a mod chip from them way back in the day. We're talking like 1999, 2000-ish. And they were the place to go for, like, imagine if AliExpress existed back then, but it was all video game centric, and you could get things like mod chips and custom cases and accessories and things like that. So that's where those custom cases that were on those PlayStations that TBS Comics used to sell were originally sold. And it was pretty much the only way to get them, as far as I know. And now they've become pretty hard to find because they're really good quality. They're as thick as the standard factory plastics and things like that. So when we first opened, somebody, I think it was the Dave, came by and he had a box of stuff that the owner of TBS had found in their storage unit. And there were those replacement shells, which there are a few different colors. both for PlayStation and Dreamcast. So that's actually how I ended up with a pink Dreamcast and a pink PlayStation, which now Molly is in possession of the pink PlayStation. And those shells came from the same place, which is really cool that like we ended up with some more. I think we ended up with a green one and a blue one. I don't know if they sold yet or not. And then, yeah, there was a Sega CD in there that we got from Derry, which was cool to get a Sega CD set up plus Lunar on the exact same day. So that was a nice little grab, especially when Sega CD's in working condition. We got some cool stuff. It felt like a trade night from like 6 years ago, where there were things of like that caliber and that nature available from random people there, which was really neat. What else happened or is happening? I got some mail the other day. I got 2 arcade PCBs. I got a working Dig Dug PCB that had been bulletproofed, which is good because both Dig Dug PCBs I have right now do not work. I have a Dig Dug cabinet that I want to get together because I really like that game. And I guess it was frying PCBs. It looks like on the edge connector, it would burn them out in the same place. So it's probably a power supply issue or wiring issue that I need to like mess around with to see what I can get done. But now that I have a working PCB, I can just pop that in and go from there. But also in that same thing, I got a Vapor Trail PCB, which is, yeah, Derry in the chat. Yeah, I got Dig Dug. I got a Dig Dug cabinet from someone in Foley like a year ago. It nearly killed me because I had to unload that cabinet by myself at Buc-ee's, and it had wheels on the back, and I didn't know it, and it like rolled forward, and I caught it with my chest. It was a bad situation, but I got a Dig Dug PCB, and then I got a Vapor Trail PCB, which Vapor Trail is one of my favorite vertical shooters on the Sega Genesis. It's got a great soundtrack. It's just a really fun game. It's relatively simplistic. It's not like super intricate or crazy, but it's a good game. And I threw that in our Raiden cabinet and swapped a couple things around. So that's available to play at the bar right now, which is awesome. I'm super excited. I played some of it today. It's a good time. I fixed a couple other things today. Turbo was having some issues with the colors on the monitor. It was just a loose connector. That was no big deal. Mandalorian, I had to adjust some pieces on because balls were getting stuck and whatnot. I feel like there was something else I fixed. It sounds stupid, but I know that not everybody that listens to the podcast deals with arcade cabinets. I wired Vapor Trail doesn't have free play dip switch setting, so I wired the coin slots to the start buttons, which is a classic thing to do. That way you can just hit start and it coins up and starts the game at the same time. That way it kind of like connects the circuit. But that was pretty much it. The girls painted a new art piece on the wall next to the U-Beat and Max Tune. So if you're there, check that out. They spent a couple days on it, and it looks really, really good. Shout out to Kenna and Sam. That's why Sam's not on the podcast tonight. She's asleep because she's tired. So, yeah, repairs are going good. We're full speed ahead into really rad weekend stuff. And I've got a lot to knock out before that, too. So, it's getting wild, guys. It's getting wild. Enough about what I've been working on. Let's talk about some like news stuff. Yeah, we're exactly 30 days out from Really Rad Weekend, by the way. It's November 11th and 12th. The Island Resort on Oakleys Island. The hustle is very real. I don't sleep very much. I have a pinball machine in my garage right now that I'm working on. I've got some arcade cabinets working on. And then I am building. So those in the Twitch chat can see it. But I'll describe it for our audio listeners. So for our badges last year for the guests that we fly in, we laser cut and hand painted some acrylic badges that looked like NES cards. This year I'm working on a project that utilizes a Raspberry Pi Pico and a 1.5 inch LCD screen. And in hindsight, so it's going to be integrated into the badge, and the final product, you guys will see it at the convention or shortly before, probably the day before. I have a feeling I'm going to be assembling these at the convention. But in hindsight, I should have gone with Raspberry Pi Zeros, even though it would have been a little bit more expensive. Just because the Raspberry Pi Pico is merely a microcontroller. It doesn't have a lot of onboard memory. I think it's something like 256 kilobytes, maybe even less than that. But it's for like doing electronics projects where you want to control some servos or use it as a pass-through for some sensors, things of that nature. However, I'm reteaching myself Python, which I haven't written Python in almost 20 years, so I can get some graphics displayed on these, and it's it's a pain. I don't know if I'm going to get these done because I still have to come up with a battery solution, which I think I've got an idea on how to run these off of some lithium batteries, or maybe even double A's. But I've got to do a little bit of soldering, a little bit more coding, and we'll see if we can get them done. If we do, they'll look awesome. If we don't, then I've got a whole bunch of 1.5-inch LCDs and Raspberry Pi Picos. Maybe we'll mod some GameCubes. I don't know. But yeah, let's get into the news because it makes my brain hurt thinking about how little time I have to get all this code written. Because each one has to have individual code written for each individual guest, unless I come up with some kind of crazy game plan. So, I guess earlier this year, there was a rumor going around that Best Buy and Target were going to stop selling physical video games in their stores. Today, that rumor has perpetuated and seemingly materialized. It hasn't been 100% confirmed, but a pretty solid source, according to some other sources or some media outlets, say that Best Buy is going to stop carrying physical media very soon. And I don't know if that's going to coincide with their Black Friday rush or something like that. And I mean, I can't say that I'm surprised. I don't know if you've been into a Best Buy lately. They're a little desolate. I think Best Buy as a business is going to stick around just because they have Geek Squad and stuff like that. And at least here, it seems like a lot of people utilize those services. And sometimes you do want to just go in and buy a cell phone or buy a console, or I guess not a console anymore, hardware. And that's kind of the place to do it, especially in our area. However, the writing's been on the wall. Everything's moving towards digital. Physical media doesn't seem to be as necessary or desirable to the current generation of gamers, especially younger people that are in the current console cycle. I know that reliable internet is still hard to come by in some places. However, it seems like the world's going digital, whether it be through streaming or downloading the game from Microsoft and Sony servers or even Nintendo servers. But it brings up some interesting points about ownership and licensing and things of that nature, especially in the modern times where some games don't fully install from a disc. There are still a lot where the game is contained on the disc and there's no requirement to download. However, a lot of times that disc is acting as your key to unlock the game so you can play it. And without people really caring about that physical media, it makes evolutionary sense from that medium to not exist. However, if I purchase a game digitally, there's no good way for me to resell that game to anyone unless I sell my entire system in my account. And it's kind of a way for the companies that produce these games to take control of the market and maintain certain pricing standards and things of that nature. because I don't know if you've seen it, but if you try to buy a game on PSN or the Xbox market, I just shook my camera. Sorry, video people. The prices never go down. They'll run sales every once in a while, but typically a $70 game remains $70. And it's a licensing thing. Like Darian Games from the Dead says in the chat, you technically never own the game, just pay for the right to play it. And that's pretty much true. You're paying for a usage license, especially when it's digital. Unless there's some like weird clause in there, because I've seen some where it's like you own this game even though you only own that local copy that is downloaded to your machine. Now when it comes to streaming like xCloud and things like that, you 100% do not. And that was a good example of like Stadia, which Google Stadia shut down, and now those people are out of luck outside of their $30 Bluetooth controller. And it's kind of scary in a way, especially from a business standpoint where we rely on physical media to stay in business. However, a good argument here is while there is always going to be a collector of something, are the new generations of gamers even concerned with collecting if they don't care about physical media? And is collecting and playing games, are they exclusive, mutually exclusive? Or I know personally that not only do I collect games, but I also play them. But does the person that just wants to play Call of Duty every release, do they care about collecting that Call of Duty? Or do they just want to download the game and play it? And they just want the newest iteration of that game all the time. They don't give a crap about it being on a disc or a cartridge or whatever. And so I think, like I said, we're just seeing the next evolutionary step in media. And at some point, this was bound to happen, and it comes to no surprise. There is something to be said about companies like Limited Run and Premium Edition Games. Shout out to Frank and Jeff. That while they are putting out indie releases in a physical way for a collectability standpoint, are the people that just want to play those games really going to care? And are we going to see the number of people that want physical media dwindle even more? Because I think we are. I think that at some point nobody's going to care about the tangibility of that cartridge unless it's from a historical standpoint and a preservationist or collecting standpoint. I almost said the word collectionist. That's a that's a deep-seated throwback to Tales from the Game Store from the CU podcast that Ian used, and it kills me every time I think about the word collectionist. So, I don't know. There was also a rumor that Walmart was going to stop selling Xbox games, and I don't know why it was just Xbox games. That doesn't make sense. I feel like, if they were going to stop selling physical media, they were going to stop selling all of it. Coincidentally, though, while I was reading about this and talking about this with some other people, an article popped up from Wired of like how to start a cassette collection in 2023, which is freaking wild to me. Like, I promise you, you don't want to listen to audio on cassette. I come from that generation, and it is not great. Just like we don't want to watch movies on VHS. Yeah, you might have the nostalgia of putting the tape in and rewinding wherever somebody left the video off in Jurassic Park, but the image quality sucks. The audio quality sucks. It's not great. If you're gonna watch an old format, watch Laserdisc. If you're gonna listen to old music, listen to it on CD. It's just, and I was gonna say, if you want to listen or if you want to play old games, play old games. However, devices are out there like, funny enough, I have a Miu Mini Plus or whatever. What is this called? Miu Mini Plus sitting next to me. So I buy all these like handheld emulators and stuff, and I like to check them out because I like to see them get more powerful, and I like to see the different features that they have. But honestly, like if I'm going to play a retro game, unless it's something I have a lot of nostalgia for, or I don't want to try and like find the excuse me, the physical cartridge or hook everything up, it's the best way to play it. Like this, between things like this that are cheaper and the analog pocket, which we'll talk about analog pocket stuff in a second. I've got some funny opinions about that community. And so you've got all these devices that range from like, I bought this other one that's cheap plastic that is terrible quality. However, it's got some good NES games on it for like $10 on AliExpress. I bought this Miu Mini Plus. I believe this was like $60, maybe $80. And it's like a nice quality handheld, and it plays everything that I would want to play anyway. Definitely through like the 16-bit era and even into some of the 32-bit stuff. But there's ways to play games. There's ways to watch movies. There's ways to listen to music. Best Buy getting rid of physical media, I don't think that is that surprising or shocking. And it's wild because I think that all right, Cupcakes in the chat says you're spot on. Some Best Buy stores have already stopped selling physical games. So I don't think that they technically have stopped yet. I think what happened is they have sold out of a lot and they haven't restocked. However, what we're talking about is that apparently the rumor is coming to fruition that started earlier this year that they are going to, in fact, halt all sales of physical games in their stores as of this year or the end of this year. And I believe that might coincide with Black Friday. Maybe what they'll do is have one like last cash grab where it's like, hey, we're blowing all this stuff out. Which, for all of you limited run collectors that want the Best Buy variants, it might be a good time to stock up on those and use your Best Buy points if you have them on games. I don't think we're going to see physical media stop being a thing for at least another 10 to 15 years. Like, overall, I do think that we are going to see a lot of retailers stop selling it. And I'm talking about like first step retailers that are direct from suppliers to consumer, not your resale shops and things like that. Because obviously we'll always sell physical media as long as we're in existence. But I think that you're going to see a lot of it go away in the big box stores. It may not be a market that's doing well for them, especially places like Best Buy, because to me it kind of looks like Best Buys are dying outside of their services. And I think that I think you'll see specialty stores first, or not even specialty stores, big box stores that are more focused. Like you'll see Best Buy, and then you'll see Target, things of that nature. Walmart will follow suit, and then if GameStop can hang on, we'll be reliant on them, and other things of that nature. And then it's down to us mom and pops. If they're making it, we'll try and get it. So I don't know. It's interesting, very interesting, wild times, and but it's not anything we didn't expect. If you expected physical media to maintain for forever, it's I don't know. Thanks. I love my Sorcery shirts. They're the best shirts in the entire world outside of Radbar and RadJunk shirts. I actually wear Sorcery shirts almost every single day. I wear them more than my own merch. And that's it's kind of funny. So I'm trying to think of what else. Go buy games. Everybody go buy games. Buy games from RadJunk. Please. Please God. It's going to be... We're going into the holidays. People are starting to holiday shop. I know we've touched on this multiple times. Starting to see a lot of... I didn't pull a market report today. Let me do that right now, actually, while we're talking. So every week I kind of like to dive into what's been selling hot at the shop, just from like a sales perspective. It's a really high level overview, more or less, of our top selling categories. Um, and last week, Switch stuff took the top place, and it's changed up quite a bit. So Game Boy games are still in second. Wii games are number three, which I kind of expected. GameCube games are still in there. 3DS is still in there. Um, PS2 is in the first slot, and we can probably attribute that to we got a pretty sick PlayStation and PlayStation 2 horror lot a couple weeks ago or a week ago, and so there were some high dollar items in there, and I'm sure that kind of pushed the sales up. However, PS2 is always strong for us. I see more demand for PS2 than I do PS3, which in some cases would be surprising because of how many like high profile games are on the PS3. I think the difference is there's no bite-sized games on the PS3. You may have a handful, but most of the games on the PS3 are like big epic like 40-hour things, and a lot of people have already played them, and while some people want to go back and play them again, they're a real time sink. And so the PS2 is a good console to go grab some games you may have never heard of because the library is massive, and it's full of things that are either small, large, huge narratives, shooters, racing games. It's got a myriad of things that appeal to a lot of different audiences. So it doesn't surprise me to see PS2 back in the top slot. We get that a lot, especially over the summer. People also buy PS2s as like their kids' first consoles, which is kind of funny. My first console was an NES, and to imagine like your first console being something that at the time of its release was touted as this like technical marvel and powerhouse with the cell processor and all this other junk that Sony put out there. It's like imagine that being someone's first console, and they're like, "Man, these graphics are trash compared to a PS5. I can't believe this is my first console." I don't know. It's wild the relativity of things as you learn them or as you're being acquainted to them, you know, through the process of gaming. But yeah, PS2's strong. Still, I think that through the holidays and maybe even through the spring, we're going to see the handheld stuff in that top slot. 3DSs are as hot as ever. Switch consoles are selling. We had like six of them a couple weeks ago, and I think we're down to one now, maybe two. We keep getting them in, but like we sell them fast, and our Switch games sell really fast. We did see Xbox 360 get knocked out of that sales slot though, which it's cooling off a little bit, but I think that's mainly because of the frequency that people were buying other things. And my friend Clint, he hit me up today to talk about some 360 collecting stuff, and he brought up some good points and some things that we were gonna. I think we touched on the last episode maybe that I wanted to dive into a little bit more, which maybe next week I'll have like a whole thing where I have more notes on the viability of Xbox 360 collecting, because it's going to get hot, and it's an interesting category because most people played the popular games just like on the PS3. They played their Halos and their Battlefronts and things like that and their Forzas. But there are some, for lack of a better term, some hidden gems in there that are like Odomedius is a good one. It's a shooter. Death Smiles, Raiden Racing Aces. I know that those are all shooters, but they are not games you would necessarily expect to be on the 360. Or yeah, because it's like those games belong on a PS2. Like it fits the mold of a PS2. They're very like Japanese in a certain way that is fitting of a Sony game and not a Microsoft thing. Even though they weren't developed and published by Microsoft, you know, they're there though. And there's some good games. I think Castle Shikigami is also on there. I'm trying to think of another one that's not necessarily a shooter. That's just what comes off the top of my head because that's what I collect. But I've also noticed prices rising on some Transformers games. We found a Transformers game the other day that goes for like $50, which is surprising because most people see those and they equate them to like movie shovelware trash, but the games are actually good and they have a following, so it's driving those prices up. And you're going to see it more and more as time goes on, and people of that era where maybe a 360 was their first console are starting to come into collecting because they have a little bit of money. They want to buy the games they had, and they want to dive deeper into the library to buy games that they didn't have. And I mean, that's the natural cycle for all collectors. That's exactly what I did. That's what all my friends did. We all started off wanting to rebuy the things that we had and then find new things that we didn't, or buy the things that we couldn't afford or couldn't acquire at the time. So I think 360 is going to get hot. Um, I feel like all these collecting cycles kick off with a Nintendo console and then follow with a different console as far as their collectability and their popularity goes. And since the Wii's heating up really hardcore, and we're gonna see it spike. I know there's a lot of shovelware that will never be worth anything, but the Wii stuff for the past probably 8 months, Wii's have been flying off the shelves. We have a bunch of them now because we fixed them, whatever. And most people start out buying a Wii because they want Wii Sports, they want Mario Galaxy, and they want Mario Kart and maybe Brawl. And then you've got some other titles like Twilight Princess and things like that. While they're good and popular, they seem to be like a second thought versus a first thought. Wii Sports and Mario Kart being the number ones. And I think that we're going to see some people really start to go after some Wii things, like probably Last Story and uh, Opuna. And I'm trying to think of another one. Another game in that realm. Probably like, what is the Kiwi game? Ivy's something. It's like New Zealand Story. I can't remember the damn name of it. Ivy the Kiwi. It's the little bird, the dumb bird on the Wii game. Um, but I think games like that are going to shoot up in price as people start to discover them. And I think we're also going to see a small spike in games like Zack and Wiki, which is a Capcom game. It's like Kid Pirates. A game that I haven't seen in a while. Oddly, even though it was a launch title that I actually liked, that I know a lot of people didn't, is Excite Truck. I've seen Excite Bots more than I've seen Excite Truck recently, and that's kind of odd to me. I'd be curious to see like what the print numbers on that are or where the price is on that. I'm sure it's only like $5 or $10, but those are the type of games that I could see getting hot because somebody buys a Wii and they want to pad their investment into their console by buying some games. And don't forget, the Wii's also the best GameCube outside of the Panasonic Q. So it's but as that gets popular, people are going to shift, and we're going to see some focus on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. It should be really good. Shattered Memories is another one. Ryan in the chat brought that one up just now on Twitch. And I think Shattered Memories will spike. The only thing I worry about that is I think it got a reprint. I could be wrong because I think it did spike at one point. Obviously not while the Wii was as popular. And then it dipped. And I don't know if that was because of a reprint or because of some other availability or like a remake or something like that, which is interesting. I know there's a couple other horror games. Like I think The Calling is one. That genre typically holds pretty strong because people love it and it's usually got cool artwork on the cover and it's attractive to people that are in the collecting scene and they really coincide. But overall, I think 360 collecting is going to follow suit. And so it's time to really start to deep dive on those lists of like, what does the complete 360 library look like? what games were only available on XBLA, Xbox Live Arcade discs, that are no longer available in the storefront because they were digital. I'm sure we're going to see some cases of that. I think there's a couple different XBLA discs that contain games like Splosion Man, and there's a couple others. I know that there was a Street Fighter 2 Turbo port for Xbox Live Arcade or something like that that may have made its way on a disc. That was the case with the Scott Pilgrim game. It was only available on Xbox Live Arcade until it got remade a couple of years ago. So that game was lost to time, and the fact that it was digital only. And so unless you get that on a hard drive, I don't even know if it's on a hard drive if you can still play it if it's on an Xbox 360. It might have to call home and do like a validation, which I'm sure they're going to shut that stuff down soon. I know they announced that the storefronts and the media stuff was closing in 2024 for Xbox 360. However, I think you can still play the games if you have them. I could be wrong. I didn't look too far into it. But these are interesting thoughts that go back to the physical media debate of, is physical going to matter? And from a preservation perspective, if it's something like that where the game was available digitally and the console has to call home to validate the game so you can play it, and you can't play it anymore because there's nowhere to validate with, that copy on disc is going to be where it's at, and the only way to play that game, which is mind-blowing, scary, and however good for prices of that if you are somebody that wants the prices to go up. If you want the prices to go down, you're kind of screwed with the lack of physical media. So, I don't know. Interesting stuff. Cool stuff. I didn't really get any questions this week about the store or anything. I didn't ask. I've been a little busy. So, I'll put up a Q&A thing for the next episode. We did pretty good on time tonight. We're at 52 minutes. I try to hit that hour mark every week. I got a bunch of Game Boy speakers in, so I can do some replacements. Speaking of, I'm on the hunt for a new soldering iron, potentially. So at the shop, I use a Hako FX88D, which is a budget, like, it's not budget, it's like $100. I know that's kind of expensive for some people, especially for a soldering iron, but it's digital. That way you can dial the temps in. It's pretty good, does the job. At home, I have a better pace unit. However, it's analog. It's got a dial, and it uses these things called Sensitips, and the tips are very expensive because they're some proprietary thing. I've been thinking about replacing that with like a nicer station, either a nicer Hako or a nicer Weller. I know that a lot of people go for that like bang for your buck, but I do a lot of soldering, and I'm like, I just need to buy something nice. I have a really nice hot air rework, a variable power supply. My workbench is pretty decent, but I would like to replace the soldering iron because we're about to do some more intricate things. And I don't know. I'm on the hunt. If anybody has any suggestions, drop them in the comments. Touch points before we leave. Really Rad Weekend tickets are on sale. Hotel, we keep filling up our room block, so I keep having them add rooms to our block, which is cool. I like to hear that. Got plane tickets booked for pretty much everybody. I got one more I need to book. I need to talk to a couple more people that reached out to be guests. All right, Cupcakes, you got your room. Woo! In the Twitch chat. So if you want a room, book it now. Book it stat. So there's this year and last year coincided with another event that happens at the same hotel. So hotel rooms can get kind of weird. And this year, like I said, we keep filling out our room block. So if you run into a scenario where you go to use our promo code or you use our booking link and it doesn't work, let me know and I'll get it fixed. Oh, save in the chat. My wife, she said happy birthday, Grimace. It is officially my birthday, It is Friday the 13th. If I was a tattoo guy, go get a tattoo. However, come to Rad Bar, play some pinball, drink some beer. Thanks, chat. Thanks, All Right Cupcakes. Thanks, Viper Zero Hour. Ryan, I love your username because I always want to say something really stupid when I read it. Thanks, Derry. Thanks, Allie. Thanks, everybody. Man, you guys broke me. Oh, if you have trouble booking a hotel room, let me know and I'll get it fixed. And then we've got early bird tickets on sale now. Weekend passes start at $35. I'm gonna turn that off pretty soon. So if you want to book a ticket, book it now. It's now's the time to do it. Also, if you have kids, bring your kids. Kids 12 and under are free with a ticketed adult. We just want people to hang out and have fun. However, if everybody could do me a favor, whether it's for my birthday or just in general, could you guys share Really Rad Weekend? Please? Could you just share it with your friends on your personal pages? We have pretty good marketing and stuff like that. However, I was thinking about it, and the biggest thing for me is, while my audience on Facebook and stuff is decent, I come from several different backgrounds, so sometimes I feel like I just share it to the same people, and so I'll have these guys that have $1 million cars seeing this video game event, and they're like, what the hell is this? But I'd appreciate that. Or if you want to share the podcast, that'd be cool too, because I like doing this. I know it's kind of dumb and rambly, but tonight's a little wild. My brain is legit fried. I've been working on stuff all morning, and my kid was crazy today. Also, Derry, I will get you a list of arcade games soon. Sam talked to our logistics person at the hotel. I have to have a conversation with them about power, because someone made them be under the impression that arcade machines use 200 amps each or something, and I need to correct that, because we're consolidating the retro console room and the arcade into the same room, and they don't understand that an arcade machine doesn't use much more power than a TV and a console hooked up. But we'll get that corrected, and I'll get you a list probably beginning of next week. I've got a pretty good idea of what I want in there, though. Outside of that, we've got Radoween. We've got a trade event in Tampa. Trade Day 23 is coming up October 22nd. It's an event much like Trade Night. It happens at the Highland Recreation Center in Largo, Florida. We have a great relationship with them. My buddy Dave puts on those events. We sponsor it, and it's a good time. It's on these nice basketball courts, and it's a lot of fun. Also a free event, so check it out if you're in the Tampa area. Ryan, we'll get your garage open so I can get that solar strike out of there. But yeah, trade event in Tampa. We've got Radoween on the 28th at Rad Bar. I will be out of town, which I will have one more episode. I'll record the episode before we leave, and then get it uploaded and all that jazz. So that way you'll have something to listen to. And then, as always, I record on Thursday nights. We're live on Twitch, twitch.tv/RadJunk, and the audio goes up to Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as an archived video version on YouTube. And we are RadJunk everywhere. It's youtube.com/RadJunk. There's something else I was going to say. If you guys could share the podcast, that would be sick. I just need to, I think I need to change some stuff with the way I do our thumbnails. I kind of like to keep it consistent. That way people can see that it's a podcast, and I know that's terrible for the YouTube algorithm, but I don't know. I'll mess with it. If you have questions about the podcast, hit me up on Facebook. I'll usually post before we record. I did not this week. I was a little busy. And then you can drop your question in the comments. If you listen to this on YouTube, put it in the comment section. And then if you would like to send in a question, email it to info@radjunk.com. And in the subject line, put it podcast question or Q&A. I've got to respond to some emails tonight about some fan panels. I did most of them this morning. If you'd like to put on a panel at Really Rad Weekend, we've got some 45-minute slots in our second panel room. So get at us about that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you guys know the drill. We've got a whole bunch of rad stuff going on. It's technically our off season, but it is super busy. Also, I think there's a Mortal Kombat tournament this weekend. I think a Mortal Kombat 1 tournament at Rad Bar on Sunday. So, yeah. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for interacting. And thanks for listening to my crap, because that's what I do. I just sit here and ramble for an hour. We'll get Sam back on the show next week. She was super tired. And then maybe we'll get some of the girls on as well. Maybe we'll get Molly on there and maybe Arlene, so they can tell some bar and shop stories. So until next time, everybody stay rad, as cliche as that sounds. Buy your tickets, share the stuff. I'm going to go celebrate my birthday. I might drink a beer and then go to bed. Doesn't that sound fun? Tomorrow night, Rad Bar, 7 p.m. It's Joe's untitled birthday. It's also my friend Kara's birthday. She's the chef at Beach House in Navarre. So go there if you want a nice dinner. She'll be at the bar tomorrow night, though. Everybody, take it easy. Thanks for listening, and have a good weekend.